I am Dr. Govind Prasad Sahu from Center for Basic Sciences, Pandit Ravi Shankar Shukla University, Raipur, Chhattisgarh. I am an assistant professor of mathematics. My research area is mathematical modeling of infectious diseases and dynamical system. So I would like to thank the organizer of this webinar, Dr. Kumar Singh Mathur, and all team. I welcome all the participants. So let us start our webinar lecture on mathematical modeling and analysis of infectious disease dynamics. So as we know that we are witnessing the COVID-19 pandemic worldwide. So what is the role of mathematics in designing or modeling of infectious disease dynamics? So with the help of mathematics, we can assess so many scenarios which cannot be ordinarily observed with the help of simple experiment or some statistical techniques. So first of all, let us understand what is actually mathematical epidemiology is. What is infectious disease epidemiology is? So epidemiology is actually the study of disease and the determinants in the populations. So this branch of mathematics, which is a highly applied version of the mathematics, is called mathematical epidemiology. So in epidemiology, we identify groups of individual populations that have similar characteristics, ignoring the uniqueness of individual members. So instead of studying individual, we want to study about the whole mass or community of the populations, and we just want to study regarding the characteristics of the disease, its spreadings, the assessment of control measures, and so on. So it tries to determine whether this division of individual into groups tells us something more than what we have learned by merely observing each individual. So instead of studying individual, we want to study in a group and to get something more than just by observing the individual, and the goal is to describe, analyze and understand patterns of disease in such group. So these are the objective. So just we want, so what are the major questions related to the say global pandemic COVID-19? So the first question is that given the today's current situations, what will be the total number of cases in next 1 week or next 1 month and so on? Applying the measures of quarantine, isolations and lockdown, containment zone and so on, what are the effect of this, what might be the effect of this observation? So one method is actually to apply this control measure and observe the result from the experience, but another is just model the system through mathematics and simulate it and get the result from the simulations. So in this way it is a it's time saving, it is economic, and sometimes we don't have time to test in the population, sometimes that is unethical. So let us start understand how we can do that. So this mathematical modeling is at various level. So if we study at micro level, that is at a pathogen level, then it will be called within host models. If we study a little bit of macro level, so then meso level, that is the intermediate level, say in between the host, then it is a meso level. If we study at population level, then that is actually the macro level. So the pathogen basically means the cause of disease. Due to we have infectious disease. It might be a virus, bacteria, etc. For example, we know that HIV is actually infectious disease due to virus. Tuberculosis is an infectious disease due to bacteria, and so on. Malaria is actually an infectious disease due to parasite, and so on. So with the help of mathematical modeling, we understand the competing risk of death from disease, and also we attempt to some extent to know the infections through some form of control strategies. Suppose nowadays we are actually quarantining people, we are following the social distancing measures, so we are tracing the contacts, the persons who have been in contact with the other persons and so on. So if we apply all these measures are called non-pharmaceutical measures. So then the questions will be, what will be the course of infections in the near future? That is, if we should say, if we follow say lockdown, then what will be the total number of infections in say next 15 days? If we follow say 50% lockdown, then what will be the course total infection next 15 days, like that. So one important challenging in mathematical modeling is also that data resources are very limited, since due to the improper or sometimes insufficient medical setup, we don't have sufficient data or exact data. For example, in the case of say COVID-19, so there are so many infected persons they do not have any symptoms, they are called asymptomatic cases. So they don't have any fever or cough or any kind of symptoms. So it is, unless they are pathologically tested, it is not possible for anyone to detect that whether they are infectious or not. So these are the real challenges. So due to the mathematical modeling, we can address such scenario by say doing some random experiment in some limited region, and that is actually the random detections, and then we can generalize inference about the whole populations, and we can do the modeling. So the salient features of infectious disease dynamic is to forecast, to predict outcomes of disease in the community, and also to understand the effectiveness of various control measures, maybe the pharmaceutical ones or in-pharmaceutical ones. So these are the real challenges. So let us have a quick review. What do you do by mathematical modeling? So when we have a system, so basically when we have a real systems, so we make a model. A model is basically just an imitation of the real system with certain objective. Without objective, we cannot model anything. So whenever we have a model, we have certain objective, and when this model are translated in terms of scientific language, here in terms of mathematical language, so that becomes the model systems. Once the model system is there, we performs approximate theories. We analyze that model systems with the help of advanced mathematical theory, and we do some theoretical predictions. On parallels, we also perform simulations to our model system, taking some biological parameters, and we get the simulations result, and we compare the simulation result together with the analytical result to improve our theory. And once these are actually done, so this is actually the mathematical findings. Well, again, when we have the simulation results, so we compare this simulation result with our real world problems. So this is actually from this cycle, we do the mathematical modeling. This is through say analytical modeling, and this is through simulation modeling. Here we compare the real world system. So here real world system, so we perform experiment. Suppose this is actually the non-mathematician approach. So they do perform the real experiment, they analyze their experiment, and they derive results, and then they compare the results with the real world situation. So this is actually the what non-biomathematician approach, or say real experiment, and this is actually the mathematical modeling and simulation approach. So here itself you can understand the importance of mathematical modeling, how that is done. If we quickly go back to the history of mathematical modeling, then it goes back to 1760s with the Bernoulli. So he's considered to be the first mathematical modeler. So Daniel Bernoulli formulated and solved a model for smallpox in 1760, and with the help of his model, he was able to assess or evaluate the effectiveness of the vaccinations. Similarly, in 1906, Hammer formulated a discrete time model to understand the recurrence of measles. In 1911, Sir Ross actually developed a differential equations model for malaria transmissions as that was a host vector models in 1911, and he won the second Nobel Prize in medicine for the discovery of malaria parasite and also the treatment. And the main mathematical foundation for the infectious disease dynamics goes to the Kermack-McKendrick models of 1926. So they actually extended the Ross models and obtained the epidemic threshold result. This terminology, epidemic threshold result, is very much important in the modeling of infectious disease. So we will further understand what does it mean by epidemic threshold results. So let us have a little quick view regarding the Kermack-McKendrick model. So this actually this is a deterministic model. Deterministic, it means that it is actually it does not involve any stochasticity. So the rules are governed by fixed formula. So this is the simplest model. So there are three equations. If we see just mathematically, I will explain it in details further. So if we look at here just mathematically, then what we see here, that here we are having system of three first order ordinary differential equations, and so the sum of their derivative is 0, so that the total population is closed. So this is the simplest model of Kermack-McKendrick, but very important from the history of mathematics point of view, because it started a new branch of mathematics, what we call mathematical epidemiology. And nowadays that has been the one of the most applied branch of mathematics. So the basic assumptions here are that the populations are homogeneous. What does you mean by homogeneous population? That means the people are the populations, they are mixing homogeneously. So we are just we are not biased with anyone with the populations. So that is a homogeneously. What do you mean by which is not homogeneously? That means heterogeneously. So suppose if we see that if we subdivide the total populations into two categories, first is actually the say healthy persons, and second one is actually the suppressed immune persons, for example suffering from HIV, tuberculosis, or some kidney disease. So in that case, for the second category of populations, the risk of infections will be high. In that situations, the populations will be heterogeneous. It will be can be classified into two groups. So that is actually the situations. So regarding the implications of the model, so okay, fine. So before going further, let us understand knowing if how rapidly an emerging pathogen will spread through a population. This enables us, the public health official, to make well-informed decisions to protect the public. The simplest example is, or one can say the historical example is that as of polio. Say we have the polio eradication campaign by the World Health Organization. So the question is, if it is, first of all, theoretically, if we vaccinate each and every child in the country, then there will be all the children will be immune, and so there will be no new cases. But this is practically not possible. So because due to the limitation in the implementations. So the question is, if then what is the minimum fraction of children, or that is what is the minimum percentage of children that is required to be vaccinated in order to eradicate the polio from the whole population in a long run, not in a short run. So that type of question is given by a biological threshold, and so the public health officials use such mathematical results for their policy making. So another important challenge is that actually, as I discussed, that is the data set. So at least for validating of the model, at least one data set is required, so that we can estimate the model parameter, and another similar data set is required to validate the model, so that we will be sure that what we have modeled mathematically, they are doing the right purpose for which they have been modeled. So for example, in the case of emerging diseases like coronavirus and COVID-19, so what are the major challenges? So we do not have readily available diagnostic kits at that in a sufficient amount. So that is actually the one of the important cases because of detection of, as I discussed, asymptomatic cases. Similarly, validity and completeness of the data is often problematic, as we know that sometimes data is actually not properly documented regarding the details of the patients. Sometimes even the health practitioners fails to detect the cases. So in that situations, the data becomes error prone and the data is sometimes insufficient. So as I was talking about the biological thresholds in the infectious disease dynamics, the most important biological threshold is what we call the reproduction number, or what we call the basic reproduction number. So just understand it very clearly, because it is very important. So what does it mean? As we can see from this picture, so there is a some sort of a binary tree kind of a structure. So suppose the red represents here one infected individual. So this infected individual, let us say it he or she infects the two other persons, then each one of them infects the two other person in whole their infection period. So here we can see that each individual is actually infecting the further other two. So that type of, so what is the basic reproduction number? So the basic reproduction number is, if one infected person is actually exposed in a normal population, that is the population having no disease, then in the whole duration of the infectiousness, what will be the total number of secondary infections? Secondary infections means the infections that is received from the first infectious person. So that is actually the basic reproduction number. So this basic reproduction number, this is actually the biological threshold R, but it is not depending on one just single parameter. It depends on so many things. So what does this depend on? The basic reproduction number depends on the number of contacts. So that is a person has per unit time. Let us represent it by C. So that is, if the number of contacts is high, that is the people are actually mixing rapidly, then definitely the infections rate will be high and the infection will spread very rapidly. Second is the probability of transmission. So this is also very critical. Even though we have a contact, so what is the fraction or the probability of transmission from an infected one to an healthy one? So that probability is also very important. Also we can have, so we can control this C also just by using, say, maintaining the social distancing. We can also control P with the help of other measures, non-pharmaceutical measures, like for example, wearing masks and so on. So if we wear masks, then the probability of transmission will be comparatively less as compared to not wearing the masks. The next one is the important is duration of infectiousness. More the duration of infectiousness, the higher the total number of secondary infections. So, but this is actually not in our control. This is actually the intrinsic property of the infectious disease. So, for example, if you see, say, for COVID, it is normally considered that 14 days period is actually the total lifespan of the infections. So that is actually the, if it is a 7 days half, suppose first, then definitely the total number of secondary infections in the similar situations, that will be just half, that so and so on. So this duration of infectiousness also affects the basic reproduction number. And then the next is the proportion of contacts that are susceptible. So along this, suppose if there are all the people are infectious, they are infectives. So if new infectives come, then he cannot infect anyone, because there is no one healthy to whom he can transmit his infections. So the availability of healthy persons in the valid contact, that is also one important. So these are the four important parameters or for things which affects the basic reproduction number. And the simple model will suggest that. So this is actually the you can say from general reasoning, but we have a sophisticated mathematical tools, what we call the next generation operators, to calculate the basic reproduction number. So, but here we can see that the number of contacts multiplied by the probability of transmission, multiplied by duration of infectiousness, and multiplied by the proportion of contacts that are susceptible. Susceptible here means the healthy persons. So this, the product of these quantities, that becomes the basic reproduction number R0. What happens with the basic reproduction number R0? the average number of secondary infection cases resulting from the introduction of a single infectious case into a total susceptible population. So this is the definition of R naught. So this is the situations if the biological threshold R naught is less than 1, then say for example here we are having in the first phase 2 infectious people, infective people, and then suppose in the next phase there is only 1 infective people. So clearly the per person's the rate of secondary infections is less than 1 because it is just half. So therefore R naught is less than 1. So what will happen in the third case? So suppose in every next phase the number of, if R naught is say half, then the number of infectives will be just half by the previous phases, and so the disease will be decreased and eventually it will be eradicated from the population. So that is the scenario in the case of R naught less than 1. In the case of R naught greater than 1, that is the basic reproduction number is greater than 1, what happens that this one single infective person, he affects more than one person. So here we can see it is affecting 2 person in his whole infectious durations. So definitely in these situations, the total number of infectives in each phases that will increase with time. So our intention or the objective of the policy health, that is actually the policy making, that is the health agencies, is that to control R naught so that it becomes less than unity. So since it depends on various different parameters, so certain parameters we have control on, and there are certain parameters we don't have any control on that. So for those parameters on which we have control, how can we control those parameters so that the basic reproduction number is less than 1? So that is actually the target. So okay, so these are the is that question is that does the model predicts accurately? So if it is so, then why as we in the first phase lockdown we said that we can control it in within a 2 or 3 months, but why the things are not like that? So there are the situation. So there is a famous quotations by George P. Box, that is all models are wrong but some are useful. What does it mean? It means that whenever we do some modeling, so that is never the real system, that is just the model. So we do always some approximations and also some idealization, that what we call assumption. We have certain hypotheses. If the hypotheses are changed, or if the hypothesis that is our assumptions are inappropriate, that is wrong, in that situations the result predicted by the model that will not match with the result by the real world system. So therefore we need to be very careful while modeling, while assessing the parameters and while forecasting, but still they are quite useful, and useful in a certain degree that it is actually life saving, and we are also I mean from the economical point of view also it is very much helpful. So before understanding further, so let us see some of the biological aspects of some infection. So so this is actually the x-axis is a timeline. So that is a time since infection. So here, suppose this is the y-axis. So this is actually the time 0. That's time 0. It means that the one individual is actually getting infection at this time. So this is considered as the time 0. So before this, the person was susceptible. Susceptible means a healthy person having no symptom or pathogen of infectious disease. And so at this point of time, he gets the infections, and up to certain point of time. So this is the exposed or latent period. So what is this exposed or latent period? That is the virus load in the human, or that is actually so low that they are not actually able to infect the other person. So that depends, again, this is the characteristics of the infectious diseases. So some infectious diseases, so but the persons immediately start to that is spread the infections, and on the other hand, on some certain infectious disease, it takes some time to get spreading of the infectious disease. There is one more terminology, what we call incubation period. This incubation period is basically just the this is the time or duration between the getting infections up to the getting symptoms. So for example, in the case of say HIV, so if someone gets that is infected by HIV virus, So then it takes almost 7 to 8 years to get the real symptoms of AIDS. So that is actually the incubation period is very large. So sometimes due to the incubation period, the people were unaware whether there is an infection or not. So that is actually the situations. So this is the infections period. This is the diseased period, the highest load of, and then the recovered period. So recovered means actually either the death due to the disease or the recovery from infections. In the recovery from infections also, the recovery of infections also, so there is actually two types of situations. Either we get the permanent immunity or we do not get the permanent immunity. So that, for example, in the case of measles, so if a person is infected by measles, then he develops a permanent immunity. But on the other hand, say TB or say influenza, one does not get permanent immunity. So now let us come to the real mathematical modeling. So this is the simplest model, what we call SIR model. So what is this SIR? Basically the whole population. So we are modeling at population level. So the whole populations are divided into 3 mutually exclusive and exhaustive classes. So that is, some people are susceptible. Susceptible means healthy. Some people are infectives, so they have infections on them and they are spreading the infections, and the rest of the people are they have recovered from the infections. So this is actually the gamma is this lambda is just the transition from susceptible to infection, and gamma is from infectives to recovered. So gamma is the recovery rate, and so the duration of infection, that is the inverse of recovery rate, that is 1 by D. So if D is actually the duration of infections. So here this force, this is called the force of infections. This is basically lambda. So that is beta. Beta is actually the transmission rate, and I by N, this is the ratio of infectives. So that N is actually the total population, that is sum of I plus N plus, sorry, S plus I plus R. So this is equal to capital N. So this is S is number of susceptible, I is number of infectives, R is number of recovered individuals. So the question is, how does the number of people susceptible infections are recovered change over time? Since due to the infectiousness, the status is not permanent, someone who is infective right now, in future he may be recovered. Someone who is right now susceptible, in future he might be infective. So the situation, this is actually the dynamical system, that is mathematically. So the number or the actually the in S, I and R class, so that is not constant, but that depends on time. So this is basically the dynamical system. So that it, and so their change is governed by this system of ordinary differential equations. So ds by dtt here represents the time. So the derivative of susceptible populations, that is governed by minus lambda s. Here lambda is actually the force of infection. So effectively it will be minus beta si by n. So beta is actually the per unit time per individual infection rate. That is what we call normally contact rate. So here you can see that minus delta S is actually the outgoing rate of change for the ds by dt, and that much of population is joining the I class. And again, gamma is the recovery rate. So the gamma I fraction of population are, that is actually the joining to the recovered class. So this is the governing differential equations. And if you do the simulations, basically that means the numerical solution of this differential equations. So here we are not, this is the simplest model. Here we are not considering the birth rate, death rate, and so on. So that depends upon the situations, whether that is required or not. Suppose in the case of say COVID, say 15 days or 14 days are actually the total infectious duration. So in that case, so the birth rate is a natural death rate, that is not very much important. So here we can, here we are not included the demographic parameters in our model to make it simple. So here we have on x-axis we have the time, and on y-axis we have the S, I, and R populations, that is susceptible, infected, and recovered. So the question is, if we know the values of the two parameters beta and gamma, this model have only two parameters. So if we are able to estimate these two parameters beta and gamma, then we know everything about this dynamical system. So how? So for example, so look at these simulations. So if we start from this and this, so what is this green? It represents recovered one, and the S like this. So here we can see that, so this is the value of I is so low that it is not properly visible here. So this is the one scenario. So if we keep on the time increase on with respect to time, so it is behaving like this. So what does it mean? If the situation of the solution of this dynamical system is like this, it means that we can see if we extend this further, so that each of the population that is susceptible, this one is susceptible, recovered and infectives, they are settling down at certain level. So not everyone in the population eventually get infected, but here we can see the majority of the population are here recovered. So that depends on the various values of parameters beta and gamma. So that we need to. So another scenario, so beta equal to 1, gamma equal to 0.5. So we have these situations. And if we increase beta, that is the rate of contact, to 2, and if we keep the recovery rate fixed, that is gamma equal to 0.5, then just see the difference. So here in the case of beta equal to 1, that is the rate of infection is actually slow. So then we are having this type of situation. So you can see the red curve here. So red curve is actually the total number of infected. So here we are getting peak somewhere in between, say 12 or 13 unit time, and then eventually the disease is settling down to certain. That actually disease is actually dying here. The zero level is just a little bit above the x-axis. So this is basically actually the zero level. So the disease does that is eradicated from the populations. But if we increase the beta, so here we see that the peak the peak arrives early, and also the peak is higher. So the reducing the contact rate, what does it have effect? So this is here we have the higher contact rate. If you reduce the contact rate, then the peak size is also reduced. So here the peak size is somewhere in between 250 and 500, and here you can see the peak in somewhere in between 0 to 250. So peak is actually reduced. And so if we further increase the recovery rate, so earlier the recovery rate was 0.5. If we further increase the recovery rate, that is gamma equal to 1, then what we see that the virus, actually the infection load, that is also becomes less. And also if we control the contact that is a 0.5, if we reduce further, then we may get this scenario that eventually there is no disease in the populations. So that is a scenario or some sort of lockdown situation kind of things, if the people are properly following the measure of lockdown. So not everyone in the population eventually get infected. So the time and height of the peak and the total number of people infectious depends on beta and gamma, and sometimes almost nobody gets infected. So this is the scenario. So as we told, so this all can be decided with the help of what we call basic reproduction number. So the ultimate effect is what is basic reproduction number. Again, I'm revising the definitions. The average number of secondary infectious cases resulting from the introduction of a single infection cases into a totally susceptible population. So that average number of secondary infection is called basic reproduction number. So again, in this model, in the case of say I equal to 1, that is the single populations, and then totally susceptible populations earlier, that is the total population is S in that situations. So here the force of infection, how much time I have, Mr. Mathur, so that I can maintain the speed actually, because I think we are
now you have 20 minutes around.
Yes,
20 minutes around.
50 minutes.
20
minutes. Okay, thank you. So this is the situation. So here total number of secondary infection cases like this. So R naught in this case, so that is beta into D. D is actually the duration of infectiousness. So that is 1 by gamma. So that is beta by gamma. It plays the role of R naught. Actually, since the lecture is just of almost 1 hour, so I'm not going much details mathematically, because we cannot cover all those things into just 1 hour lecture. My basic purpose is to sensitize all the audience of this webinar to understand how the things happens in the field of mathematical epidemiology. So if they are further interested to study or to understand the subjects, they can study the related literature. Also, they can you all can also contact me at my mail ID. So this is the basic reproduction number. So here, what are the basic properties of this SIR model or the R naught? So here we can see, so that just by a little bit of manipulations here, we can see that this is actually, this is just the second equation, di by dt. And from, if the s is approximately equal to n and I equal to 1, then what we got, we get di by dt is beta minus gamma, that is 1 by gamma times R naught minus 1. So from this expression we can see that since gamma is the recovery rate, which is always a positive real number, and therefore, so if R naught is less than 1, then the thing, it will be a negative real number. And from the result of calculus, we know that if the rate of change is negative, then that function is decreasing. So if R naught, which is a constant, depends on the different various parameters, if this value is less than 1, then the whole derivative is negative. In that scenario, the rate of change of I with respect to time will be negative. So the number of infectives will decrease with respect to time. Similarly, if R naught is greater than 1, then it will be positive. So the I will increase with respect to time. So the number of infections will increase if R naught is greater than 1, decrease if R naught is less than 1. The value of R naught reveals if a newly introduced disease will spread or dies out. So, but the problem with the basic reproduction number is that here we have assumed that we are exposing an infective one into a wholly susceptible population, but the reality is that is just the first initial phase. But once we have the infection in the population, so that is then not the basic reproduction number. So in that situations, we have what we call net reproduction number, sometimes called effective reproduction number or control reproduction number, like that. So, so here these are the situation. So the next concept is that is of net reproduction number. So this is actually the average number of secondary infectious cases resulting from each infectious case in a given population. In a given population, here the assumption of in a wholly susceptible population is changed instead of that in a given population. So these populations may have some of the people in the populations may be infective, some may be susceptible, some may be recovered. So that is the force of infection, that is lambda is still beta as I upon S. So this is the total number of infective cases, that is lambda Sg. So this is beta upon gamma I by N into S. So in this situation, average number of secondary infectious diseases. So in the case of, so here, it is a lambda Sd upon I. So that is N means net reproduction number. So this is beta upon gamma, which is actually the basic reproduction number, into S upon N. What is S? S is the total number of susceptible people, and N is actually the total number of people. So this is fraction of healthy people. So always it is in between 0 and 1. So 0 actually when nobody is healthy, and 1 if all are healthy. So from here we can see that the net reproduction number is basically the R naught into S by N. So this actually it will, so if the S is actually here N, that is all the population is healthy, then it becomes the basic reproduction number, and otherwise S by N is always strictly less than 1 real number, and therefore the net reproduction number will be less than the basic reproduction number. So that is actually the situations. So the net reproduction number is the basic reproduction number multiplied with the proportion of the population that is currently susceptible. So again, if we see from the equation, that is di by dt. So this is the governing equations for rate of change of infectious populations. So it can be written like this just by introducing this Rn terminology. From here also you can see that since this is actually the population, so population can never be negative, it is always a real number, positive real number, and therefore so the rate of change will totally depend on the value of Rn. If it is still less than 1, then the rate of change of I is a negative. If it is greater than 1, then it will be positive. So if Rn is greater than 1, then the infection increases. If the Rn is less than 1, then the infection decreases. So that is actually the situation of net reproduction number. So here we can see the different scenario. So this is basically the simulation of the model for beta equal to 2 and gamma equal to 1. And here in the second plot, with respect to time, we have the value of Rn, that is the net reproduction number. As we see that this Rn actually R0 times S by N, so it is not constant with respect to time, because S is not constant with respect to time. That is the, so therefore initially the net reproduction number was higher, because here what is the scenario here? So initially the infection increases, it reaches to the peak, and then eventually it decreases, and the disease is actually eradicated, that is, disease dies out from the populations. So in the case of say COVID, the public health agencies are saying that we have not reached in the peak yet. So we are not in this right now here in this position, that the total number of COVID patients in India will increase further in near future, according to the mathematical modeling and their result from the public health agencies. They are, so at the beginning of the outbreak, Rn is equal to R0, as I told, because S is equal to N, and in the peak of the outbreak, Rn equal to 1, and then after that, this is actually, so there is a concept of what we call herd immunity. So you might have listened about the control of COVID in the UK or some other countries. So initially they thought that they would let the COVID spread in the country, and the country will have herd immunity, and then they can control the disease. But that strategy was actually, that was fatal, means that did not work. So what is actually the herd immunity? So herd immunity is a simple, that if suppose all the people are, majority of the people are infective and recovered, there is no healthy people who can catch the infections, then infections cannot spread. So just, so this is actually, so vaccination is one of the pharmaceutical measure to control the, to reduce the proportion of susceptible. If someone is vaccinated and vaccine is successful, then he's actually immune. So we can say that he's in the recovered class or vaccinated class. So here, for the simplicity, the people with vaccination will be in R class. So when if we increases the vaccinations, so what effect it has? So it increases the actually the size of R class. So ultimately decreases the size of S class. So the size of S class is decreases. So the S by N is decreases. S by N is decreases. So the Rn is decreases. Rn is decreases. So the net reproduction number is that decreases, and net reproduction number decreases. That means that the disease actually becomes slower. That is the multiplication is actually less. So that is the concept. So if we just due to some rearrangements, we can calculate that if mu is 1 minus R naught. So this is actually the quantity, that is the what we call the herd immunity. So we need to vaccinate at least a portion mu of 1 minus R naught in order to recover or to control the disease from the population in a long run. So this is actually the herd immunity threshold. So suppose, for example, in the case of say polio, if R naught is fixed for certain reasons, so if you plug it into here the R value of R naught, then we can have the this proportion of vaccinated, that is actually in the number between 0 and 1. And here also, if you multiply it by 100, then we get the result in percentage, that much percent of population needed to be vaccinated in order to have the herd immunity. So you do not have to vaccinate everyone. So that is the important because we have the limited resources. So suppose the vaccine is actually less, or because it costs to the economic burden. So if we are having the limited resource of vaccines, then what is the minimum percentage or fraction of population that needed to be vaccinated in order to control the disease? So that is actually decided with the this proportions or this formula. That is what we call the herd immunity formula. These are the typical examples for various past infectious diseases and their herd immunity threshold. So for example, although the okay, malaria for it is 99%, measles it is 99 to 95%. What does it mean? It means that if we vaccinate, if the 90 to 95% of populations are having the immunity, then due to the herd immunity, we can control the measles. So that is actually the, so similarly for whooping cough and so on, for polio, for influenza, it is 40 to 60% and so on. So the typical values of R naught for well-known diseases actually, that is here for measles, this is actually the airborne transmissions. Here we can see that this R naught ranges from 12 to 18. So here I would like to comment one important thing that, so although R naught depends on the intrinsic characteristics of the disease under study, it also depends on the various environmental factors, like as we have seen that it also depends on the contact rate, recovery rate, and immune, that is the number of R class, that is what we call immune class, and so on. So that also uh, affects the this R naught. So that is the one of the reasons. So for example, few country actually they do not prefer to get vaccinated, so the level of immunity in that particular country will be low, so the R class size will be low, so the chances of S will be high, and so on. So similarly, in a densely populated region, so the contact rate that will be high, so that will actually proportionally affect the R naught. So the basic reproduction number will be high, so the spread will be high. So that is one of the reason in the, say in the case of COVID-19 in the Mumbai, say there we have the actually slum area, so there the population is very highly dense, so therefore the chances of transmission contact rate is high, so therefore for that particular reason the R naught will be high. So these are the situations. So here you can see that SARS is for airborne droplets, the R naught is in between 2 and 3. So from this, the highest, say you can see the rubella, polio, smallpox, they are having the higher basic reproduction number. So what does it mean? That they are actually highly contagious. So similarly, measles and pertussis are also highly contagious. So at last, just glimpses, actually we can see the one simple model of COVID-19 cases. So this is the reference for this. So here we can see that the whole populations are classified into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 compartment. So that is what is S. S is susceptible, as we discussed. E is the exposed class. That is actually, this is the class which have a virus in itself, but they are not right now exposed, expressing the, I mean, infective. They are not infectious. They are not spreading the infections. I is actually the infective class. They are infected and they are also spreading. R is the recovered class, and D is actually the death. Actually, they are also, we are witnessing the large number of death worldwide due to the COVID-19. So this is the death class. So here from we can see that how the interaction is taking place. So this beta is actually the contact trace. So here one more thing is there, actually instead of taking the total number of population, we are taking here the fraction. That is, S is not just the total number of susceptible, but susceptible divided by total population. So the value of each of these are actually in between 0 and 1. So therefore there is no n, and actually n is hidden there because it is actually in the form of fractions. What we call sometimes also this is bilinear interactions, that is incidence functions. So that is again more mathematical terminology, and so there are various incidence functions that can be used for modeling different diseases. So that depends upon the characteristics of the disease, what type of incidence functions has to be used in the model. So this fraction of this is actually the rate of change, negative rate of change in the susceptible populations. Due to that, the people are they are actually the transfer, they are getting going into the exposed class, and this is gamma gamma epsilon time. Again, that is a ET. So it is not epsilon, it's E. So the gamma is actually the rate of one infectiousness. So it is with the rate gamma rate, they are going to the infected class. With delta rate, they actually they are this is the recovery rate, and out of those F fraction, F is in between 0 and 1. So they are the death rate, and the remaining 1 minus F, that is actually the recovery rate. So this is actually the typical scenario for this COVID model. And these are the descriptions of these parameters, S, E, I, R, D, and so on. And so let us see the situations. So how, if we simulate this, then what we get. So let me show you the simulation. So this is basically one it is actually developed with the help of Mathematica. So here this is mu is social distance and so on. So SEIRD model for COVID. So these are the actually different values of rate. So if this is the simulation result, susceptible, exposed, infected, recovered, died. So suppose if we increase the say death rate, so if I increase death rate earlier, so 0.39, then you see here the result or the simulation is changed. So if I run it, so here, so you can see it is actually a little bit fast. Let me make it slow. So this is the effect of this parameter mu. So here we are taking the parameter mu from up to 0.17 and so on. So this is actually T is T max, that is the maximum time. So 0 is actually the date of first infections, and then this is time in days. So here we are taking up to say 150 days. So with this set of parameter values, so if we increase, if you see what will happen with the, if the days changes, then we can see that. So this is the scenario. So ultimately we are so this is one scenario. So here you can see that infection, this one is actually here we have somewhere infection piece, and this is dying out. So that is because the so total populations, that also S by N, net reproduction number, it reduce the net reproduction number also. Average incubation times and days, so if they have the certain effects. Total number of initially exposed, they also have the effect on the system. Initial number of exposed case fatality rate, the death rate, so they also have the different situation. So these are the simulation result. So say for example, if the death rate changes, then the situation will change like this. So it is taking place. So this is nothing but just the numerical simulation of ordinary differential equations. We have the system of ordinary differential equations. You can do it by your own code. You can do it in your any programming language like C, C++ or whatever the programming language you use. The important question is that that's okay. So what happens, why mathematical modeling is very important as compared to the real experiment? I will explain that. So as you can see from these simulations, so suppose if you do survey on say populations, what is the total number of fraction of say exposed, infection and so on. So that will be just the one scene. But if any parameter gets changed with respect to time, so then that cannot be captured statistically. So for that, we need the advanced mathematically like this. So if the total population or any of the factor changes, so then the situations will be like this. This is actually the governing differential equations. I actually included it in the slide. So here the font is low, so you cannot see it properly. So that is okay. So the findings, finally, what we can say from this particular model, that the basic production number for this COVID cases actually that is in between 2.8 to 4. That is, it is right now greater than 1. So if it is greater than 1, then it will spread in the community. So that is actually the basic reproduction number. So net reproduction number, that may change with respect to time. So the percentage of people with asymptomatic infections reported as in the literature is 17.9. As of 29th March of 2020, actually nobody shows any predictions on the extent of pathogen spread globally. Globally, what will be the exact the situations, actually nobody is able to predict in one single model. So why it is so? Because actually when we model something, so a model which is actually applicable in for one scenario, that may not be applicable for another scenario. Similarly, for the same reason also, depending on the different objective, we will have different model. So instead of focusing on which model is correct. So if you ask the question, then whether another model is actually correct or not, then the answer will be that we would accept that one model and cannot answer it all. So with the help of just single model, we cannot answer all the questions. For different questions, we need to model differently, and also to answer some complementary sub questions, that also we need to model differently. So ultimately, so with the help of lots of different models, different scenario, if we combine together all the models and scenario, then only we can see the big picture, and which may be the applicable in the whole population. So that is actually the situation. This is just the summary. What we can say, that this mathematical model is actually the mathematical description of any dynamical process. Here I have used or shown the compartmental models. So from the dynamical system point of view, it has state variables and parameters, and we have studied some, say, SIR model. We can see the simulations. If R naught is very important threshold, if it is less than 1, then the disease will dies out, and if it is greater than 1, then the disease will spread in the community. Net reproduction number is actually the reproduction number, or say the biological threshold that affects the disease. And also here we talked about the herd immunity threshold. And okay, so if the models like if it considers say influenza, so in the case of say influenza, so we have the loss of immunity because we don't have a permanent immunity. Then it may be have the seasonal also. I mean, the R class is not necessary that it will always contain R class. Similarly, if the endemic, if the disease is actually it is a cyclic in nature, that is depends on say some weather conditions like cold regions or something else, then that we need to model in a different way. For example, suppose in the case of say India is actually the one of the countries having the very large number of malaria infections. So we know that in the rainy season, the rate of malaria is actually high as compared to the other season, summer or say winter. So this is actually the seasonality. But if we add more complexity into the model, more features into the model, so that becomes actually more difficult. And sometimes the analysis of that models becomes very challenging from the both theoretical point of views. But with the help of digital computers and simulations tools, now we are able to simulate large number of large number of equations are very complex models or dynamical system. Differential dynamical system is not only one of the dynamical system. There are lots of other techniques also. It depends upon the situations whether it will consist of, there is some stochasticity kind of view. If they say the total population is very small, then the fluctuations are the stochasticity matters. But if the population is very large, then the OD or deterministic method is actually also appropriate. So similarly, we have agent-based modeling, we have network modeling, we have partial differential equation-based modeling. So we have automated theory. So there are different approaches for modeling the infectious disease, and each approach have their own merits and demerits. So we need to choose wisely. So depending on the objective of the study, what type of techniques one should use to model the different scenario. So with this, I would like to thank you all the participants, and thank you to Dr. Mathur for organizing this important webinar for the researchers, and also inviting me into the same. Over to you, Dr. Mathur. Any
Wonderful,
questions from the audience, they can ask.
Wonderful, Dr. Gobind. Thank you very much. You have delivered very informative lecture in an interesting way. I hope everyone has enjoyed this lecture a lot. So you have explained the definition of basic reproduction number, herd immunity very well. Of course, basic reproduction number is very useful in controlling infectious diseases like in COVID-19 case. In COVID-19, the value of basic reproduction number is lies from between 2.8 to 4, that means greater than 3. Means a susceptible person can infect it more than 3 persons. And that's why this disease is spread in this manner, right? And the mathematician is what studying, they are actually trying to reduce this value so that the one person cannot infect anyone, right? And in this manner, we can control this disease. So now I am inviting the questions from the participants, and we have some question, and the one question is from Divyendu Adhikari. The question is, how do we choose the best model to explain a phenomena?
Okay. So as I told, no model is actually correct or no model is best. So depending on the questions, what you want to study, one has to choose the model. So for example, if we are handling the COVID case in a very small populations. So in a small populations, the chances of fluctuations are very high. So in that situation, we will use the some what I told you stochastic models. But if the population is very large, so the change is actually almost smooth. So then we can use the ODE model. Similarly, also depending on the situation, suppose we are tracing a contact tracing kind of thing. Suppose someone is coming from foreign through a flight, and just we are getting the details of all the persons who have got in contact with the infected one. So that type of study where, so that particular person is actually very crucial as compared to the other person from the population. So that becomes, so that is actually the contact. So agent based modeling or some other kind of network modeling, so that is more appropriate in that situation. So that totally depends on the situations, what is your objective of study or in which situation you want to study. I hope I would have your answer up to a certain extent.
Okay, good. And the second question is, what may be the maximum number of factors to develop a model in biological system?
So there is no absolute answer of these questions. So that depends on you. Suppose even if you think of a simple system, so initially it may look simple, but as you go on in details, so it may be very complex. Just think of a free fall of say apple, what Newton's actually discovered the law of gravitation. So if you think what you have, so you have a gravitation, you have the mass of the apple, and I think that's it. So the height, what is the height? So I could say that the three parameters are required. But if you go in more details, then the wind velocity is the actually the constant of actually the coefficient g, that is the gravitation is actually constant throughout the height. So these are the questions we need to answer. So if you go in details and more accurately, then we would find that these are not constant. So as we incorporate more features in the complex, it becomes in the model, it becomes complex, and the analysis is also complex. And let me tell you one thing, that sometimes always a complex model does not give answer. It is the preferable that a simple answer, because a simple model we can easily handle. So a simple model, if it gives the more information, so they are actually the desirable. Dr. Mathur.
Then next question is from Kirti Gupta. What happens when R0 is equal to 1?
So if you listen carefully my slide, so I told you that as R0 is 1, and if the net reproduction number is also 1, then what do you think? The things will be constant at that particular level. But net R0 basic reproduction number is one thing, net reproduction number actually changes over time. So at the peak, we have the R0 equal to 1, and then Rn equal to 1, then it declines actually.
Okay. And head of the department is also interested to ask a question.
Yes, sir, please.
Dr. Sahu.
Yes, sir.
You listen me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay. My very simple questions.
Yes, sir.
You showing in your graph,
yes,
your distribution of infection is distributed normally. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Your infection of disease distributed normally.
Yes, sir.
The peak of the infection is in mid time. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Peak of infection at the middle time. middle
Yes,
time,
sir. I understand, sir. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how you can measure the infection of disease distributed normally? You want the basic parameters of that.
No, sir. Actually, that is actually the statistical approach. So we apply statistical techniques to estimate the parameters. If we suppose, if you want to estimate this beta, that is the contact parameter. So one.
What is beta? What is beta? What is beta?
Beta is actually the contact rate.
Contact rate. Okay.
Contact rate. So if we want to estimate this beta, that is the contact rate, then it requires one different model to estimate the average contact rate, because we are actually not talking about the contact rate of some individual group. We are talking about the contact rate of whole community. So what will be the contact rate? So there is one statistical model is required to estimate this parameter itself. And this parameter will be the, say, the mean is say 2 with some standard deviation kind of things. So then we, with some certain degree of accuracy, actually freedom. So that is actually the one thing. Similarly, and here it is not normally distributed. We are not doing anything. It is the behavior of the dynamical system, that is the governing differential equations, that we are getting this type of scenario. It is not always that it will be very symmetric or that kind of things. But in a long run, if the disease dies out, it is not always necessary that the disease dies out. Say, for the example of, say, if you see the HIV emerges in, say, late 80s in the 1980 about, and still that is endemic in worldwide. Till date, if you see if we simulate the total number of infective cases of HIV, then it is not declining like this. So the behavior may be more complex, more complicated, depending on the situation. Sometimes what happens, what we call the waves, as you might have heard in the newspaper, that there are 2 waves or 3 waves of the epidemic. So what happens initially, the can you sir, क्या आप यहाँ पर मेरा mouse का movement देख पा रहे हैं?
Yes, okay, I observe.
So I'm just trying to explain with the help of mouse. So initially it may happen that, suppose this is the rate of infectives. So initially it is increasing, then it goes down, and it may have that instead of going to 0, it may again, it might increasing. We may have another peak, bimodal kind of thing. It may goes down, we may have again peak. Maybe the third peak is smaller. So this type of complex behavior that might also arises. So that totally depends upon the behavior of the system, the complexity of the system, or that's actually. So how we can resemble these situations with the real life scenario. So for example, you see earlier we have a strictly lockdowns in phase 1 lockdown. Nowadays, due to the economic consideration and all, we are just losing the lockdown condition. So what happened earlier, the beta, that is the contact rate, that was very low due to the lockdown situation. But since the market is now being open,
beta is contact rate. Beta is
that will again bounce back. So that is actually the situation, sir.
What is the range of the beta?
Range of the beta, sir, actually that depends on the situation. This is
suppose we have no lockdown. What will be the maximum range of beta?
That depends on the community, sir. For a, say, India is a highly dense population. In India itself, say UP is a mostly dense populations. So the value of beta in UP, that will be high as compared to the, say, some Switzerland or some other country, because the population is very dense. It also not only depends on the.
What is numerical range of beta? You can estimate or not?
Yeah, of course, that needed to be estimated in order to fit into the actually. So, okay, let me show you.
If we have the basic data like number of the populations and all those things,
here,
then we can predict it.
Okay.
Yes, pardon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sahu. Thank you very much. Your lecture is very appreciable. Appreciate I very
Thank
lecture.
You, sir. Thank you.
Also, thank you to Dr. Mathur for interacting with Dr. Sahu.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have also some questions, but due to limitations of the time, we are not able to actually produce here. And I will send these questions, and the participants can directly interact you.
Yeah, you can post my mail ID, and participant can directly contact me, and I will be very happy to answer the questions.
Okay. So once again, thank you very much, Dr. Gobind, for accepting our invitations and to deliver a nice talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
And
Thank you.
now we have a break of 30 minutes. This is the lunch break, and we will meet again at 2:30.